तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्युर्मामृतं गमय। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। या कुन्देन्दुतुषारहारधवला या शुभ्रवस्त्रावृता या वीणावरदण्डमण्डितकरा या श्वेतपद्मासना या ब्रह्माच्युतशङ्करप्रभृतिभिः देवैः सदा वन्दिता सा मां पातु सरस्वती भगवती निःशेषजाड्यापहा।
Now, I request Conference Patron and Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Upender Dhar, to welcome our Chief Guest and Keynote Speaker, Dr. Giral Kupchi. Over to you, Technical Team. Thank you. Now I request Director Sri Vaishnav Institute of Social Sciences, Humanities and Arts and Conference Convener, Dr. Dinesh Nagar, to throw light on MANOPRABHA 2023. Over to you, sir.
Happy evening, Dr. Kupchik, and good morning, everyone. At the onset, with great pleasure and profound honor, I extend a warm and cordial welcome to all in the inaugural ceremony of the 2 days International Conference on Mental Health and Well-being, Opportunities and Challenges. Honorable Vice Chancellor of Sri Vaishnav Vidyapith Vishwavidyalaya, SSB, respected Dr. Upendra, uh, uh, keynote speaker, Dr. Gerard Kupchik from the University of Toronto, Canada, Rector Dr. Santosh Dhar, respected HOI, HODs and faculty, esteemed contributors, invited speakers, and dear students. The National Conference on Mental Health is organized by Sri Vaishnav Institute of Social Sciences, Humanities and Arts, which is one of the constituent institute of SSB. We are delighted to say that we have accepted more than 200 abstracts for presentation. The contributors are from all states of India. At least 75% of the states we have covered. Some abstracts are also from overseas. Before I start sharing my thoughts about major thematic issues of the seminar, I wish to take a step backward and briefly state that on October 10, 2018, when the UK government hosted the first global mental health summit on World Mental Health Day, on this historical day, the then Prime Minister, uh, Theresa May, appointed Jackie Doyle Price as the UK first suicide prevention minister, and in the subsequent year, mental health promotion and suicide prevention was selected as the theme, and from then onwards, mental health is celebrated on some agreed upon theme. As the National Institute of Social Sciences, uh, we conduct various activities every on this day. Maintain mental health as a universal human right. Whatever themes are selected by uh, on 10th, after after this, were all theme based. Previously, there was no theme. It was celebrated on 10th, but without the theme, it was a general theme mental health. Briefly, I would like to say the present and current state of mental health in India, the challenges faced and the initiatives taken by the government for improving mental health delivery in the remotest corner of the country. India is grappling with a prevalence of mental health problems with every seventh person, which approximates 19.73 crores facing mental health problems, including depression, anxiety, stress, substance abuse, now internet addiction, so on and so forth. The burden of mental health is immense. Further, many cases are not reported, and a sizable number of cases people are reluctant to seek help, are likely to suffer in silence. Various socio-cultural factors like stigma, discrimination, gender equality, and societal belief surrounding mental illness further elevates the mental health problem. Access to mental health care, quality of treatment, and limited availability of mental health professionals, especially in rural and tribal areas, are prominent concerns. Inadequate infrastructure, lack of awareness, and insufficient integration into primary health system hinders access to appropriate care. There is a treatment gap which is close to 70 to 90% depending on the state. The mental health services are highly accessible as people have mental health problems from rural and tribal areas are required to travel more than 10 kilometers to reach the first available service at the district level. It is very difficult to increase the number of psychiatrists, clinical psychologists, psychiatrist nurses, and other mental health specialists who are registered by the statutory body of India. To reach out, the last person located in the remote area, the government of India has taken various proactive initiatives like launching mental health program NHMP. The NHHP is a flagship initiative to improve mental health services. The program aims to provide accessible and affordable mental care, promote
मेरे
community
तिराने पे एक मेरी होम्योपैथिक दवाई की
participation,
शीशी रखता हूँ मैं हमेशा।
train mental health professionals, and raise awareness about mental health. It is also emphasizes the integration of mental health into primary health care system. In India, there are three platforms on which mental health care operates. First is the primary, second is the secondary, and third is the tertiary platform. In tertiary platform, we get super specialists specialists, and all the state of the art technology and infrastructure. Uh, Big hospitals are there, big medical colleges are there, but this is the tertiary care where limited persons can go because it is sometimes out of reach. Now comes the secondary care platform, and that is at the district level. And here it is connected with the primary health, and thereafter it is uh, connected with the tertiary health also. In secondary care platform, that is at the district level, uh, we have some doctors, some clinical psychologists, but they are very less in number. And as far as the commitment of the government is concerned, to reach the last person of the country, and they were able to reach very successfully, despite the fact there are many, many problems. Many counselors, psychiatric social worker, community social worker, ANM, Anganwadi, what they call it, uh, persons are being equipped and trained with preliminary necessary skill to help the person who is suffering from mental health to reach first the district and thereafter to the tertiary care units. So this is a very great initiative taken by the government of India. Addressing mental health problems in India holds immense significance considering the scale of value impact involved. Public awareness campaigns and educational initiatives are vital in combating stigma and promoting the understanding and empathy towards those with mental health conditions. By reducing the stigma, improving accessibility, enhancing the quality of service, shifting toward community-based care, protecting human rights, and integrating mental health into mainstream mental health signifies the progress can be made in addressing the overall development of the society. Uh, Now I will throw some light on the uh, Indian value system, Indian ethos, which are embedded in the religious text, in the scriptures. There, whatever is written right now in positive psychology is embedded in scriptures, religious text. For instance, if you are searching for happiness in the external world, that happiness is short-lived. That happiness is transitory in nature. But if you are able to search within yourself, to explore yourself, to take a journey within yourself, then you will be able to reach at high levels of happiness and what they call it bliss. Again, there are so many other religious texts, like in Bhagavad Gita, there are three paths very well described. First is called the Bhakti Marg, the path of worship. The second is the Gyan Marg, that is the path of knowledge. And third is the path of work. Whatever work we are doing, if we are involved, if we are engrossed in that work, that also gives a lot of satisfaction to us, and consequently, it makes us feel happy. So these many things also are embedded in the text. So one has to take the advantage of that which is written in the text, and now it has been empirically validated in many places. So as far as mental health is concerned, as we can see into the different themes, we can see suicide prevention. Students are committing suicide. Youngsters are committing suicide. Those who are having lot of money are committing suicide. So the thing is, this kind of things has to be prevented because people are highly dissatisfied. People are very lost hope. I don't know why, but they are seeking pleasure in external things. If one explores the internal self, then one is able to be more happy because at one point of time, external pleasures have limited value. Money has got limited value. It is the inner peace which matters. And that is what has been written in positive psychology. Lot of empirical studies are conducted and it has been validated across different cultures. So there is a paradigm shift in the way of thinking, the way of addressing the problems, because many problems can be solved without the medicine. So medical exigencies are there. If the cases are schizophrenic in nature, if the case is psychotic in nature, then of course that is the only available treatment. But then the effect of therapy can be seen, the effect of spiritual counseling can be seen, the effect of worship can be seen, the effect of prayer can be seen. So these kind of effects are there. The community social workers are meeting the persons who are suffering, and those are helped. In India, 24 into 7 helpline is functional, where any person who is having any problem related to, say, suicidal tendency, many persons are having, they can reach out, and many hundreds and thousands of lives are saved in this process. So these are some of the very good initiatives that are being taken by the government of India. Right now, we are talking in terms of well-being. And well-being, the boundary of well-being stretches beyond happiness. It incorporates many things. It incorporates social well-being. It incorporates social networking. In India, what I have seen, that those who are not having money are enjoying life a lot because they are having lot of social support in the neighborhood. And because of this social support, that pain is reduced. They celebrate so many functions, which we don't celebrate because we say that we don't have time. But they are celebrating and they are enjoying in the spirit of togetherness. So emotional well-being is important, spiritual well-being is important. So well-being has a big canvas. Now, right now, the field is expanding, and right now, the model in which the work is going on relates to mental health, mental illness, and well-being. So, this kind of model is going on, and uh, again, the model clearly states if you are happy, does not mean that you are very healthy. And if so, well-being and happiness are uh, two sides of the same coin. It stretches beyond this uh, happiness. So comprehensive understanding and explanation is needed. One theoretical framework which has been forwarded by Case has and his associate considers mental health and well-being as representing two correlated but differentiated network continua in conceptualizing mental health, mental illness, and well-being lies on two separate spectra. The first going from absence to presence of mental illness, while the another running from low to high mental well-being. Thus, the absence of mental illness does not necessarily imply high level of well-being. Similarly, low level of well-being does not always indicate the presence of mental illness. As a concluding remark, I hope that that the input which we will be receiving from this conference will be academically meaningful and professionally beneficial. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for bracing our thoughts about the system and government concern about the mental health and the legacy about the happiness we imbibed through our tradition and religious practices. Now, I request conference patron and Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Upender Dhar, for his welcome address. Over to you, sir.
Good morning to all of you from India. Professor Gerard Kupchik from Canada. Professor Paulus in absentia, of course, so far, from United States of America. Professor Dinesh Nagar, all directors, deans, delegates, and friends. At the outset, I would like to welcome all of you on this special occasion of MANOPRABHA, that is the second international conference on mental health and well-being. The first conference, which was organized last year, was very well received, and a book was also published based on very selected presentations made last year. Today, in the age of technology, environment is changing very fast. Work environment is changing very fast. The way we interact with each other is changing. Today we are reaching through online platforms, and the opportunity to interact with each other face to face is reducing. Though technological interventions are welcome, no one can deny the role of technology in improving and enhancing the quality of life everywhere. But at the same time, there are certain disadvantages. Many functions which a human being would otherwise do is taken over by technology. Say today, artificial intelligence is performing many such functions which were performed by human beings earlier. So far as efficiency, effectiveness is concerned, right. But so far as the relationships are concerned, see, the fervor of relationships is also changing. To a great extent, mental well-being is becoming a concern. As was mentioned by Dr. Nagar just now, that mental health policy has been framed in India, and many steps are being taken to see to it that system takes care of everyone. Well, if we review the literature, if we scan the literature to find the solutions, what are the solutions? How should we deal with the situation? There are more good things happening today, but at the same time, how to take care of the well-being. So I could see a few steps that can be taken easily by a person at his or her own level, not going to the system, because we know that everybody cannot go to a psychiatrist or a clinical psychologist or other specialists. At one's own level, one can change the lifestyle and adopt certain steps for wellness. One common factor that I have seen in the literature that one needs to do is the connect with other people. This connect is very important. We have experienced 3 years back when COVID happened. We could remain in touch with each other irrespective of the geographical distance because of technology. And that connect, which was facilitated by technology, helped all of us to a great deal. There are good relationships which are very important. Good relationships are very important in everyone's life. And there are easy steps which everyone can take. For example, help to build a sense of belonging and self-worth. Give an opportunity to share positive experiences. Professor Nagar was mentioning about positive psychology. And this positive psychology emphasizes on sharing the opportunities for positive experience. One can provide emotional support and allow to support others. One should support oneself. One should support others too. So that connectedness is very important. There are lots of things one could do. One could try to help build stronger and closer relationships. And when we are taking any action or any step, there are always do's and don'ts. For example, if possible, take time each day to be with the family. For example, try arranging it. Okay, fix the time for having dinner together with the family. Arrange a day out with friends who have not seen or whom you have not seen for a while. Try switching off the television or play a game with your children, friends, or family. It has been seen, it is given in the literature, it has been seen after a lot of research that in many instances, technology, say in the form of television, is replacing the personal interaction, even with the children, all living in the same family or one home, under one roof. There again, the personal interaction, the one-to-one interaction is reducing. So one is busy with the mobile, another is busy with the television, third person is busy with on the laptop, and so on. So this needs to be changed because personal interaction has no substitute. Interacting with children, interacting with family is very important. Technology can of course be used, but it needs to be used meaningfully. Say one can visit a friend or family member who needs support or company. In Indian context, we have seen on various occasions, not only family members, but even relatives, far-off relatives would come together, spend some time, few days together, and that would act like a catharsis by relieving all the stresses and forgetting about day-to-day tensions. But that is also reducing now. One must volunteer at a local school, hospital, or community group. Make the most of technology to stay in touch with friends. So technology is not a bane, it is a boon, but we need to use it rightly for interaction, for remaining in contact, for having connect with our family, friends, and others. So while using technology, while taking steps for connectedness and relationship, healthy relationship, there are don'ts also. For instance, do not rely on technology or social media alone to build up, and that's what is happening. So many people are developing addiction. Say, addiction to social media, which should not happen. That one should not do it. One should not use technology excessively. It is to be used optimally for good. It is easy to get into the habit of only ever texting, messaging, or emailing. There are instances which we are seeing today. When even 5, 6 people are sitting, you would find people Some of them, those sitting across the table, but some of them are busy with their mobile, texting the messages and so on. This is a don't. That should not be done. When we are together, we should have the eye contact. We should take care that we are listening to each other and then, in a way, respecting the thoughts of other person. This is the first step that needs to be taken at individual level. We need to see to it, we need to realize and remember the worth of a relationship. That's very important. This is the first step which I have seen very often reported in research studies. This is the solution. We can take care of mental health if we ensure that there is a connect with other people. Similarly, there is second one, that one must, second is be physically active. One should be physically active. Being active is not only great for your physical health and fitness. Evidence shows it can also improve one's mental well-being. Generally, many people feel that we are doing physical exercise or we have to be physical activity for physical health. No, that's incomplete truth. It also ensures betterment of mental well-being besides physical well-being, as all of us know. Physical well-being and mental well-being are together. We cannot segregate them. So physical activity or remaining physically active is equally important for mental well-being by raising one's self-esteem. It raises the self-esteem. There are studies which have reported that physical activity raises one's self-esteem. It helps to set goals or challenges and achieve them. Further, one must say, if we talk about do's, what are the do's? So far as the physical activity is concerned, read about running and aerobic exercises to help get you moving and improve one's fitness or improve your fitness. Read about strength and flexibility, exercises to increase muscle strength, improve balance and reduce joint pain, which may happen as one grows in age. Therefore, physical activity helps in taking care of these problems. If one is a wheelchair user, read fitness advice for wheelchair use. So a lot of literature is available today based on the scientific evidences which can be used for remaining physically active. If one simply sits at one place, watch TV, uses laptop, uses mobile only, but not moving physically much, that is not healthy. That doesn't only affect the physical health, that also affects mental health of a person. So when we talk about don'ts, do not feel you have to spend hours in a gym. So many people do over gymming, spend a lot of time in gym. That is also not a good habit. And there are cases, even particularly in Indian context, we have seen many people had heart failure while exercising or exercising too much in the gym. It is best to find activities one enjoys and makes them a part of life. So physical activity is equally important for mental health. The first is the connect with the people. Second is the physical activity. Then third is to learn new skills. One should always look for something new. As we have done, see, when COVID happened, many of us were not familiar with using the laptop and computer and the advanced technology. But we had to learn it. Almost everyone learned how to conduct a webinar. Webinar was unheard. We had always throughout our life we were familiar with seminars and conferences and symposiums, colloquiums, and we were well versed with them. But webinar came with this COVID. But then people tried to learn, they learned and they excelled. And that habit, although COVID has done a lot of devastation all over the world, no doubt about it, but at the same time, it has given this skill, it has given set of skills to use technology for good. And this remaining connected. See, what we are doing today is because of the technology. We are getting connected to Professor Kapchet, who is in Toronto. We'll be getting connected to Professor Paulus, who is in USA. But it is because all happening because of technology. Otherwise, they have to take all the travel to India, and then we only could have interacted one-to-one. But this technology, yes, it facilitates. So new skills one must learn. That is important. Research shows that learning new skills can also improve one's mental well-being by boosting self-confidence and raising self-esteem, helping one to build a sense of purpose. The sense of purpose is very important. When we talk about mental well-being, sense of purpose is very important. One should be convinced, whatever I am doing, why I am doing it. One should be convinced about it. One shouldn't be confused about what I am doing, why I am doing. He has no answer. That is not healthy. So one should know whatever I am doing, why I am doing. That sense of purpose is important. Helping people to connect with others, as I have already mentioned. But learning new skills also, as I gave an example of COVID, new skills gave us an opportunity to get connected to each other. Had we not learned, otherwise perhaps whatever we learned during COVID, so far as the new skills are concerned, we would have learned them, but maybe after a few years. But COVID, that crisis, in a way, preponed our learning process for good. Even if one feels like one does not have enough time, or one may not need to learn new things, there are lots of different ways to bring learning into one's life. Again, here I would share some of the things in terms of do's and don'ts. So far as the learning of new skills is concerned, say, try learning to cook something new. One may be cooking something every day, but one can learn to cook something new, something different. Professor Kaptik can learn to prepare an Indian dish, to something new. Find out about eating a healthy, balanced diet. Try taking on a new responsibility at work, such as mentoring a junior staff member or improving one's presentation skills. Work on DIY, that is, do it yourself, such as fixing a broken bike, garden gate, or something bigger. There are lots of free video tutorials available on YouTube. One can learn to do gardening, manage your own kitchen garden, paint your gate. We tend to engage people these days, even for small things. I recall when I was young, there used to be many things which we would do ourselves. But today, we look for people, we hire people for doing even small things. Say, for example, plumbing. One can learn plumbing. And smaller problems can be taken care by somebody is mic on. Be on the mute, please.
आप तो पूरा कप ले लेंगे मेरे को इसमें देना
Yes, who is this P? Mute kariye. Similarly, consider signing up for a course at a local college. You could try learning a new language or a practical skill such as I said, just say, for example, plumbing or smaller, say, electrical works one can do. If there is a problem in the fuse, earlier days we would do it ourselves. But today we look for an electrician to even put this fuse in place. Try new hobbies that challenge you, such as writing a blog. See, using technology again, writing a blog, taking up a new sport, or learning to paint. So this is third point, that is new skills. One can learn new skills. But again, here are don'ts. Do not feel that you have to learn new qualifications or sit exams if this does not interest you. No, it's not. It has not to be by compulsion. It should be a pleasure. Doing what you want to learn, something new. It is best to find activities one enjoys and makes them a part of life. Do what gives you pleasure, what keeps you really engaged. Because when we are talking about new skills, we're not talking about achieving new degrees and new qualifications. That is not the purpose. Purpose is to do certain things differently, your own way. But for that, you may learn new skills. You may learn certain things which are new to you. Today, we talk about going beyond horizon. Say, if I am in the domain of psychology, I must go beyond the horizon of psychology and learn something about management, learn something about environment, learn something about energy. Same thing applies to other people. The fourth point is giving to others. Very important. Joy of giving is very important. Research suggests that acts of giving and kindness can help improve mental well-being. Sometimes one may think, how does it matter if we give? How is it connected to mental well-being? It is. There are many studies available which have established that giving to others gives you joy. So it caters to the needs of well-being. It does so by creating positive feelings and a sense of reward. That joy is your reward, giving you a feeling of purpose and self-worth, helping you connect with other people. So it is capturing to say these steps are connected. These are related to each other. It could be small acts of kindness towards other people, or larger ones like volunteering in your local community. Many people volunteer to work for the community, work for the colony where one lives, the township where one lives. Some of what one can include, some examples can be saying thank you to someone for something they have done for you. Asking friends, family, or colleagues how they are and really listening to their answer. Offering to help someone you know with do-it-yourself or a work project. Helping out others. Now the last one, because we are eagerly waiting for the keynote, to listen to the keynote speaker. So I want to cut short my fifth point, that based on the literature that I could find that helps mental well-being. After other four, this is pay attention to the present moment, what we in psychology generally refer to mindfulness. Paying more attention to the present moment, here and now, can improve mental well-being. This includes the thoughts and feelings, one's body and the world around us. Pay attention is very important. But what is to be remembered? Attention to what? Attention to the present. Present, past is gone. So we need not to live in the past. At the same time, we need not to spend too much of time on thinking about the future. Focus on present, here and now. That is important. Some people call this awareness mindfulness, which can help enjoy life more and understand oneself better. It can positively change the way one feels about life and how one approaches challenges. Read more about mindfulness. So one can read, see, a lot of literature is today available on mindfulness. A lot of research has been going on. But at the same time, it's a current topic. A lot of work is even today going on, and a lot of work has been already done in last 1 decade or say 2 decades. So read more about this mindfulness, the literatures are including steps one can take to more mindful, to be more mindful in one's everyday life. That's important. So based on these steps, some of the steps which I could find in the scientific literature, that what to do. Okay, we know there are challenges. At the same time, there are opportunities available today. But then how to take care of well-being, how to take care of particularly say mental well-being. So these are some of the steps which we can take ourselves. For this, we need not to go to a specialist. Everyone is competent to take these steps. And we will learn more about these challenges, opportunities of mental health and well-being today during this conference, today and tomorrow. And I'm sure that will be richer in our understanding by the time Dr. Nagar concludes the conference tomorrow. So I once again welcome our guests, Professor Kaptik and Professor Paulus, and all others who have joined from other parts of the country, all the delegates, and I wish happy learning to everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So this address reminds me the thoughts of Swami Vivekananda. To be more mindful, youth should have body of iron and nerves of steel. Sir, your expression has set the ball rolling to gain momentum in the right direction to discuss the very theme of the conference. Now, documentation for lasting memories is very important, whether in the print or in digital form. I request Dr. Gerald Kupchik to release the conference souvenir Manodarpan. Now it's time to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Gerald Kupchik. Dr. Gerald Kupchik received his doctorate in the year 1972 from the University of Wisconsin and did his postdoctoral research at the University of Toronto. He has been a professor of psychology at the University of Toronto since 1974. He was president of 3 international organizations, including the International Association for Empirical Aesthetics from the year 1990 to 1994, the Division on Psychology and the Arts of the American Psychological Association from the year 1996 to 1997, and IGEL, the International Society for the Empirical Study of Literature and Media from 1998 to the year 2000. He received the Rudolf Arnhem Award in the year 2010 from the American Psychology Association and the Gustav Fettner Award in August 2018 from the International Association for Empirical Aesthetics, both for distinguished research and service. His research interest includes aesthetics, design and imagination processes, emotional experience, and social communication. He published The Aesthetics of Emotion, Up the Down Staircase of the Mind-Body in 2016, published by Cambridge University Press. Professor Kupchik oration will examine relations between self-knowledge and cultural awareness for different communities. Over to you, Dr. Kupchik, to address the audience.
Dear friends, thank you very much. It's always a great pleasure to spend time with my friends in India at a distance or even close. I always feel the warmth, the thanks, and the pleasure of the wisdom. My lecture today is very closely related to the advice given by my distinguished colleagues beforehand. The title of my lecture, Heritage, the Wellspring of Innovation and Well-Being, reaches back to my lecture of exactly a year ago, Knowing Culture and Imagining Ourselves. In the time of challenge during COVID and afterward, it's very important to establish a relationship with ourselves. In this lecture, I will examine life in the post-COVID era and ask the question on behalf of my students: how do I find a place in the world? How do I find a place for my creative ideas? My goal is to help them situate these innovative ideas in the context of heritage and critical life experiences. We can speak of the story of our lives. We need a safe space in which to have this conversation among ourselves and with ourselves. After 2 years of COVID and 1 year of sabbatical, I've returned to the university for my 50th year of teaching. To be honest, I've never seen students to be more open and more supportive of each other since the end of COVID-19. In my research on, camera off, because the students could watch the lectures and have their cameras on, and we could not make them turn them on if they turned them off. We looked at their motivations. Some people wanted just to get the courses done. I understand this is a reality of students today, but others miss the warmth and the touchy-feely quality of the university. And now that they're back and they come to my office, I see students who've never met each other, who come from vastly different cultures, finding a basis for renewed relationship. So I return to my themes of last year for a moment. Knowing ourselves, engaging in a kind of archaeology of the self, looking through the layers of our lives and understanding our worlds. And last year I took the position, as I reach forward, we are all the layers we have ever been. Sometimes unresolved events or emotions and meanings manifest in our dreams or linger in our adult lives. Mental health and well-being are tied to the resolution of these internal conflicts and dynamics. We may feel the pain, but struggle to identify the content that we hide even from ourselves. I have to be honest, in this era of positive psychology, in an era where we encourage people to engage in healthy activities, we all too readily turn away from the pain of their lives. It is important, in my view, to provide a safe space as teachers, to provide a safe space as neighbors and friends, to permit the positive emotions to be there, and also help people to accept the negative feelings that have chased them in their lives. It is these small gestures that I find as a teacher, because the longer that I'm a professor at the University of Toronto, a goal that I had when I was very, very young, the more I realize that indeed I minister to my students. The small caring gesture that permits a person to be honest with me and to be honest with themselves about failings as well as successes is crucial. So I turn to the two sides of the students, the two sides of the literature going back to Bales in the 1950s, the task orientation, setting goals and accomplishing them, and the social emotional orientation, building relations with others. The dual themes and realities of our lives. The need to find a place, but the need to find a place without forgetting the social relationships that are foundational for us. In my own work on imagination, I've drawn a contrast between two faces, so to speak, of imagination, the instrumental and the expressive. The instrumental side helps us survive. In our assessment of it, people say, I like to discern patterns or structures in things or events. From a young age, I've been interested in figuring out how things work, even if it was not necessary to do so. I can quickly pick up connections between things, even if they're not explicitly explained or demonstrated to me. And now in the era of post-COVID and the emergence of ChatGPT, which can be the externalization of our minds. My students are my teachers. I'm no longer their teacher. The University of Toronto wants us to have inclusive excellence. My concern is for inclusive authenticity. My Indian students are themselves. My Pakistani, my Sri Lankan, my Chinese, that they are themselves and that they reach back into the history of their families and to the history of their beings, even as they instrumentally trying to find a place in life. So I'm a kind of secret revolutionary in the university because they imagine that we're going to turn the students into us because we are such excellent professors. But all of my contact with my students only leads me to understand the value of humility because they are the new generation. They have access to the miracles of ChatGPT. They enable me to create experimental paradigms that I never imagined before. So who's the teacher now? In their instrumentality, in their relationship to science, in their relationship to modern technology, they open the doors for us. But there's the other side, not just the instrumental that enables us to survive and to find careers and to be successful. We have the expressive side. The expressive side projects emotional meaning onto our lives and onto our worlds. People write, I like to take seemingly unrelated elements and put them together in a story. Sometimes I act or role play or pretend to be someone else for fun. Sometimes I become so immersed in the fictional world. It's as if I were there. When I was a child, I sometimes created imaginary worlds involving myself or others. These are the two sides of being. The instrumental side that enables us to achieve, the instrumental side that enables each and every professor who is here to understand what they went through to find their roles. And yet, we speak of the theme of mental well-being. We cannot forget the expressive side. And the challenge that we face as individuals, and the challenge that we face as professors and teachers and neighbors and friends, is to help people achieve the balance of the two, not to become so immersed in the need for success that they forget their souls. During COVID, I received a grant from the university to study how people survived, to study resilience. And I found there were students at risk, students who felt they could get COVID, and yet they had the paradox of not following healthy procedures. And look what happens. Indeed, they don't have the support at home. Indeed, they feel alone. Are these not the people to whom the university must reach out? All the different communities to whom we must reach out and offer support and offer understanding so that they can return to a healthy strategy of admitting the realities and dangers that we face. On the resilience side, we found two forms. The confident self. I'm fairly self-confident, they say. I'm treated fairly by my community. My life is determined by my actions. I am resilient. I do not have to worry about my students with the perfect grade point averages. I have greater interest in the reclamation cases. The students with the 2.5 rather than the 4. Because they can be just as intelligent, and yet at the same time, the burdens of family, the burdens of abuse, the burdens of that which is hidden from our eyes, because I go into my classroom for 2 hours and I try to be wise and I try to entertain, but I am the wake-up call. We are all the wake-up call. So we must permit people to come authentically to us, not to pretend the illusion of well-being and the illusions of excellence, but to understand pain, to accept their pain, to help them accept their pain. Even as we are all together in a classroom, there are the positive and negative sides of life. One might say that positive psychology is a psychology of the bourgeoisie, no offense meant. The psychology of self-satisfaction. We cannot turn our eyes away from those who are needy. They are the students who come to me. They are the students who need my support. And yet we have the reflective self when it comes to resilience. I reflect on my reasons for doing things, they'll say. I learn lessons from other people's experiences. I put a high value on equality and reducing poverty and hunger. These are the two faces of resilience. So we have the contrast that COVID brought to our attention between the students at risk, the students without the support at home, the students who are not engaged in what we call in health psychology, danger control. These are the students who need the outreach from the university. I don't worry about the confident self and the reflective self. So what, therefore, is my goal as a teacher? My goal as a teacher is to help people reach into themselves to find the confidence that they lacked, to find the soul that they need, to find the patience even with themselves and even with me, as I force them, so to speak, to reflect on life. And so, as I spoke last year, we know ourselves, we imagine our cultures. We do not exist separately, as my colleague said at the outset, from our families and our cultures. Coming to terms with traditional and sometimes constraining cultures is crucial. I teach more students with more skin colors from more places than one can imagine. And the amazing thing that I see in the post-COVID period is that they come to the safe space of my office and treat each other with respect and support. I've never seen so much in my life. I don't know if they're happy to be back among humans, so to speak, and away from the computer screen. But I help them come to terms with constraints and opportunities. Because in the closed traditional society, we can be burdened and constrained. With a demanding parent, we can be burdened and constrained. The open receptive society may provide almost too much freedom. How do we balance constraints and opportunities? How do we cope with constraints? We can withdraw into the privacy of our imaginations, or we can communicate with like or empathic others. We as teachers, we as neighbors, we as friends are able to open the door for the shy, for the uncertain, for the withdrawn in the midst of the health challenges. It is not just the professionals, it is each of us. in the small gestures of kindness. It is important that the society, an Indian society, a great society with any number of people, Canada's miniature in comparison. We can think of the need for the great efforts of the society to provide resources, but it is upon each of us in the small gesture to the student to provide support for the shy, to bring them from their shells to confidence. And we must help them learn to avail themselves of opportunity. The key word of my work this year at the university, because I'm about to bring a report, because they speak of inclusive excellence, I want inclusive authenticity. I want an attempt to be ourselves in relation to and sometimes in spite of our cultures. My work with my gay students who are from the Middle East, where it can be a challenge to admit one's sexuality, where there can be fear of admitting one's sexuality. Is it not important to encourage active self-reflection and self-respect? Is it not important for us to train our students and ourselves to act meaningfully in our communities? So we need to find a place in the world where the two sides of our being, the instrumental that tries to survive and the expressive that reveals our souls, in essence, to be creative and innovative in our lives, to understand the nature of our creativity, to permit ourselves to take the risks. The demands are so high for grades. The demands are so high to please the professors who will give us the grades because we fear to say something out of line. But we must learn to situate ourselves and be creative, because in this day and age, there are a few doors that are open to us. The crack in the door that opens, that shows the light of opportunity, invites us to be ourselves. So it is my goal as a teacher, and I suggest all of our goals as a teacher, to help the students find within themselves their creativity and their insight and their humanity and their own wisdom, to situate our creativity in family and culture, to share our creative ideas, to appreciate the context in which we share our ideas. There is so much competition. There is so much concern for the grades. And now I only have students who will work together, because working together is the foundation of humility. It is the foundation of insight. It is the foundation of the safe space that permits us to be ourselves. By adopting a more holistic view of self and community, we can better appreciate the sources that help frame our creative ideas. And I'm about to embark upon this project. That in my context, in Canada, to talk to students in the creative hub, in the innovation hub, so that they're not trying just to sell their ideas, but they understand that ideas come from collaborative activities, that ideas are manifestations of our communities, that our ideas and the permission to be creative reaches back to our very families. It is we who are the agents of well-being, we who open the door, not just to opportunity, but to the legitimacy of the self. So this is based on the principle that self-knowledge in a broad social context fosters well-being. And we can help our students strategically plan their lives. So this is my view of well-being. It is not just positive psychology, which turns out to emphasize measurement, to show it. I don't have to show it. I have to have my students feel they can come to me with confidence because of our ignorance. Bishop Nicholas of Causa, 1410, taught the doctrine of ignorance. The only way for us to actually learn is to admit our limitations. And every week, my students come to me with ChatGPT and new kinds of experimental models who awaken me. And yet, I have an attempt to make a project in India in search for the secret wisdom of the tribals out of respect for Professor Bhatt. The idea that we who are so advanced technologically can learn from people who've lived in harmony with their environment, because we have destroyed the environment, they sustain it. How do we learn to see patterns in the world? How do we learn to share this with others? How do we learn to face the challenges of our innovative ideas? In essence, we have to open a dialogue with ourselves. Well-being begins at home. Charity begins at home. Security begins at home. Hope begins at home. How can I be authentic in my life? I need to train my students, invite my students to be themselves, not to come to Professor Kupchak to show how smart they are, but to welcome our collective ignorance, to welcome our collective play. Because in the act of play, in the movement back to the freedom that we distantly recollect in our childhood, we have the hope of the future. How do I understand who I am given what I experienced? I told my students in introductory psychology 50 years ago, we are what we've survived. The positiveness is not in the illusions of well-being. It is not in the illusions of success. It is not in the illusions of the awards and distinctive, etc., etc. It is in realizing that we've come along a particular path, all of us, through all the casts of our lives, showing acceptance for ourselves, reaching back to the histories of ourselves and nurturing ourselves. There is value to be gained from reflecting on the episodes of our lives. There is value to be gained from finding patterns in the events around us. There is value to be gained in honesty with ourselves and humility with ourselves and respect for ourselves in the face of the challenges of our families, the challenges of immigration, the challenges of poverty, the challenges of health, the challenges that we all faced of isolation and COVID. And in this way, we can build a balance between resilience, between instrumental success, and honesty and emotion. So how do we pull it all together as my lecture comes to a quiet end? We have two sides to ourselves, the task and the social emotional, studied unendingly by sociologists and psychologists, because we cannot have a sociology without a psychology. We cannot have a psychology without a sociology. The isolation of our disciplines and the illusions of our sophisticated methods have taken us away from our souls. I decided to do what I was doing when I was 12 years old, and I was lucky enough to survive. It is therefore my mission to help others and to work with them, to balance the task orientation that helps the students get the grades and hope for a position in life, and the social emotional orientation that saves them from isolation and helps them save others from isolation. And so this way we bring together the two creative activities in our lives. The instrumental that solves problems. My Sikh student who comes to my office and describes to me, I'd never met him, how in his childhood everybody would be watching TV and he would be putting things together and finding relations. And yet he introduced me to his partner who was working with him, because without my partner, my project is not complete. Without you as my audience, without my students with whom I work, without my dear collaborators in India, my work and my life are not complete. So we have, again, the two sides to our resilience as neighbors, our resilience as people, our resilience as family members, and our resilience as teachers. The confidence and the reflective. The importance for our students to feel confidence in themselves and hope as they learn step by step, and the need to be reflective in the face of the propaganda of the university, which I can only say in my world is progressively more corporate. We lament the fact that we have fewer students from India and from China this year, which has restricted our budgets. The professors line up to get more and more grants because the university gets a percentage and it sustains us, or rather them. We must be ourselves in the face of the corporatization and the burdens placed upon our shoulders to be successes. We must work carefully with administration to help them see new goals, to help the administration themselves become resilient. My campus begins its 60th year. The university's been there for 150, and of course, in the context of the great societies of India and China and others, we are mere babies. And yet we must have the wisdom to balance constraint and opportunity, to show the administration that the wisdom lies in the children. The wisdom does not necessarily lie in the professors because the children have survived their families, they have survived their immigration, they have survived the health challenges. In short, we must find a place in the world for the two sides of our being, as teachers, as neighbors, as friends, as family members, of the instrumental that solves the problems, and the expressive that enables us to reach within ourselves and to be honest with ourselves and with others, to be creative and to be innovative in our lives. In my latest work, we talk about the need, even as they reach out to the media, to balance revealing, that we can reveal too much of ourselves, that which we place in the internet is there infinitely, a regression and digression away from us that can come back to haunt us. And yet, in the midst of revealing ourselves and finding ourselves in friends on Zoom and working collaboratively with our dear friends in India, we find a basis for healing our souls. So what is the point of Professor Kupchik's lecture? What is the meaning of the 50 years of my being a professor? The meaning of my 50 years of being a professor is to understand the transient nature of life, to understand that well-being resides in honesty with ourselves, and my most important mission is not the celebration of career, but rather the taking of my student who has self-doubt, my student who has suffered abuse, my student who really needs what we would call mental well-being, and to lift them up. And that, I believe, is all of our mission, whether it is administration in your dignified university that reveals incredibly strong social values. In the end, our small gestures heal other people, not the grandness of our career, humility above all. Thanks for listening. That's my story.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for your inspiring deliberation. As we all know, artificial intelligence is a buzzword in all sphere of life, and academics is not indifferent to it. And one of the areas which is going to stay immune to artificial intelligence is definitely the creativity and the positive psychology. Sir, once again, I thank you for augmenting the momentum set by the earlier orations. Now, I request conference coordinator, Professor Shubhi Vyas, to propose the words of thanks. Over to you, Shubhi, madam.
Thank you, Dr. Amit Joshi. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the organizing team, my department and my institute, I, Dr. Shubhi Vyas, Assistant Professor in Psychology at Sri Vaishnav Vidyapith Vishwavidyalaya, would like to propose my words of thanks. Just like last year, this year too, Dr. Kupchik asked me to spare all the Mr. Wonderful praises, and yet I can't stop myself from doing so. Sir, thank you so much for making yourself available to all of us and taking out the time to share your knowledge on this platform. Personally speaking, from the time that I've known you, you have always motivated me to do better things in life and pursue bigger goals. You're an exceptional and a very patient mentor. And I feel so privileged to be given the opportunity to host you once again at my university. I hope next year we get to host you in person. I'd like to extend my thanks to the Honorable Vice Chancellor and Conference Patron, Dr. Upinder Dhar, for putting his faith in us and entrusting us to conduct this conference smoothly. It was an extraordinary experience to work under your guidance and learn from you. I speak for myself and Dr. Sandeep Pandey that every meeting with you has left us with some new learning and taught us so much. I'd also like to extend my gratitude towards Dr. Santosh Dhar, Rector and Dean, Faculty of Doctoral Studies and Research, for her support and guidance every time there was a hiccup in the preparation of the conference. I thank Dr. Dinesh Nagar, Conference Convener and Director, Sri Vaishnav Institute of Social Sciences, Sri Vaishnav Vidyapith Vishwavidyalaya, for being there for us throughout the event. Sir, this conference, in the true sense, is the fruit of your support and efforts. This could not have been possible without you. I also want to take this opportunity to thank my teammate and coordinator of the conference, Dr. Sandeep Pandey. You too have been a solid support every step of the way. Lastly, I'd like to thank all faculties from all departments, the technical team, students, and each and every person who is playing a role in the smooth conduction of the conference. Without your contributions, this conference would not be possible. Thank you all.
Thank you, Shubha Madam. But before we go conclude the sojourn of this inaugural session, may I request all the panel members to just switch on their videos to have a sweet memorized snapshot for all of us. Yeah, Kupchik sir, it's very important because this is the sweet memory which will.
Very sweet. There is only sweetness. That's what I've learned. Kindness and sweetness. Nothing else matters. I thank you all again.
Team, please play the national anthem.
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नाम जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Thank you, technical team. Just stay with us for a few minutes for a good announcement. Please stay back with us. Please stay back with us. Once again, good morning to all of you, and good evening to Dr. Paulus. We are having his presence because of some technical issues. He was not able to join. So we are going to have the opportunity to listen to him once again. So, Dr. Paulus, am I audible to you? Dr. Paulus?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. You're
see me?
you're audible, sir.
I apologize. Yes. For the mix up there. So I need to share my screen, all right? And I have about 30 minutes to talk. So see if I can share my screen. There we go. Can you see it?
No.
Can you see the screen?
Yeah, sir. It's legible, sir. You can go ahead, sir.
It's okay?
Yeah, it's legible, sir. It's legible.
Okay. Sorry. Thanks for the invitation. I was confused about the time and then had some other issues, so glad I could still catch you. I'm going to talk about something that I know a lot about and something I don't know very much about. They sometimes say that a little knowledge is a dangerous thing, but also too much knowledge is dangerous because it tends to fixate you. So I'm going to talk about something that I know a lot about and something I don't know so much about. In the beginning, when Dr. Nagar asked me to give the talk, I said, well, I haven't done much work on well-being recently. I did work with Dr. Nagar on environmental stress and the impact of environmental stress on health and well-being. But lately, I've been working mostly on collaborative creativity. So after the discussion, I decided that, well, maybe it's interesting to explore more deeply the issue of mental health and well-being with my research on creativity. So I'm going to combine these things together, talk a little bit quickly about these issues, as well as the relationship of my research to group therapy. So basically, let me just begin quickly. This is coming up, right? Can you see the slide okay? Yes, I began my research on prison crowding in the 70s when there was a controversy about whether crowding was really a bad thing. And some people said, well, it's not really bad. People in cities, they cope and adjust to it. But my colleagues and I thought, well, it can be a real issue in places where you are confined and don't have the full control. And so with my colleagues, I studied about 15 years research on prison housing, prison crowding. And we found that, in fact, crowding in those environments where you have uncontrolled interactions, where you have the difficulty relating to people and worry about them, there can be negative outcomes. So we saw as prisons became more crowded, they increased in terms of the issues of violence and deaths and suicides and so on. So there seemed to be a real negative effect in prisons. Also in the housing, people have thought, well, the main issue is space. We found that social crowding was the problem. The people who lived in places with a lot of people around in dormitories or crowded cells showed increased illness rates and physiological measures of stress. So interestingly, we try to, it's understandable that the stress in prison, right? You're living with people who crowded together, people who have history of not having much control over their behavior and being sometimes violent. But in one study, we found that if you have partitions in a place like that, in a dormitory, people have control of their space and actually show reduced stress. So it suggests that increased control may be important in these kinds of conditions. Subsequently, I worked with Professor Nagar on housing quality with the military. There was a lot of concern about the impact of bad environments on these military families. And based on the research in prisons, I thought, well, that probably is going to be an issue. But we found there that no, the quality of housing wasn't that important. And in part, it turned out, probably because they had choice of housing. They could choose their housing, and 6 months later, they could change their housing. But they did find that the challenges of military life and family life was related to well-being. And of course, those that can't control as much. So the issue of control really came out in those studies. Well, after that, it isn't a whole lot of fun to visit prisons and spend time there, or to go to mobile home parks, or to go to bad apartment places. So it's hard work. And so I decided to go back to my laboratory research on group dynamics. And one of the aspects that was of concern at the time was creativity. To what extent can people be creative and in groups? Now, it turns out that, I'll skip this slide here, that people had thought that people would not be very creative in groups. Most of the focus had been on geniuses, on people who are effective individually. And early research suggested that people working together, collaborating, wouldn't be very effective in sharing ideas. And so the suggestion was, if you want to be good and creative and be brilliant, do your work alone. But then people at the same time were studying team innovation and suggesting we need to work together in teams. So we decided to do a research project to look at the ability of people to come together to really work on their ideas and come together with great ideas together. It was a 30-year process. Let me move it back up here. 30-year process in which we ended up developing a theoretical model and doing research and primarily searching for this issue of synergy. That is, can we find that creative groups can outperform a similar number of individuals on brainstorming tasks? That is, if you have 4 people working together, can they come up with better ideas and good ideas compared to people who are working individually? That was our goal. And we discovered that, in fact, many factors could affect the idea creativity process in groups. We discovered that electronic and writing processes were maybe more beneficial because when you're face to face together in a group, then you can only talk one person at a time, and that's not terribly efficient. But in electronic means you can share ideas as they come to mind. Writing can do the same thing. If you write ideas and pass slips on to other people, keep passing them around, you can write your ideas as you come to you and then read their ideas. And so we found what we call brain writing to be a very effective process. So if you write ideas on a piece of paper and then pass them to somebody else, and then you look at their idea and keep passing them on and keep writing them, you can write as much as you want, reflect on their ideas. And we found that that was actually a very effective technique. And so we ended up doing studies later on that suggested the best thing is to do the writing and then as a group, and then afterwards reflect on the writing, think about the writing. So the combination of group creativity and individual thinking and reflection about it was the best. And so that I did that with a student from India, Runa Kordi, did a dissertation on that, and we found therefore synergy. We found that actually groups can outperform, outperform individual groups, individuals in a group, and also that there's good benefit of reflection about the group process. So we really found that indeed group creativity can be very good when you work in an effective paradigm and also have a chance to reflect on the ideas that are being shared. We also found that people enjoyed working in groups and that some social connections, that feelings of efficacy. So there really seemed to be a beneficial effect of that. And I've thought about the fact that maybe the research we did on group creativity might be able to be useful for group therapy. The group creativity has provided, of course, a theoretical background for it, but also a lot of criteria you can use to increase the effectiveness of idea exchange. Now, you can think of a group therapy in a way as being a problem-solving situation. You come together with people to talk about your problems, share their problems, and then try to figure out what can I do about these problems. So in a way, group therapy could be a group problem-solving process. But the ones I remember from the time I was working in mental hospital during graduate school, you had a big group just sitting around with the therapist talking to each other. And, it was not much input from the patients because the nurses and the staff and the doctors would talk a lot. The patients were kind of intimidated by this big group. So a critical thing, of course, is to have a smaller group size. If you have group therapy, you want to have a smaller group that allows people to efficiently talk to each other. But my question is there some other approach? Like, for example, the writing approach. What if you have people sit together as a group and write their thoughts and feelings on pieces of paper and pass them around to one another? What about using that kind of process in group therapy? And it turns out there's quite a bit of literature on the benefit of expressing writing. Pennebaker did research where people would express about their past traumas and their problems. And he found in many studies that it was very beneficial to write privately about these ideas. But I wonder if also there might be benefit of writing in groups. It turns out I find really nothing in the group therapy literature about that. They have people writing sometimes, just writing about different topics, just having writing process. But I don't know if any studies that have actually looked at using writing as a way of sharing feelings and thoughts and with one another about one's problems and sharing about each other's problems and working together as a group problem-solving team. So it would be a different aspect of group therapy, working together to collaborate together to solve your problems by talking to each other, building on each other. And it could be just the patients initially, or the patients with the therapist sitting in, or it could be videotaped and people can then later on, therapists could look at it and talk to them afterwards. So many different ways of doing that. So the suggestion we would have is you have a small group, no matter what it is, have a small group. So you have more intensive interactions. People can then really share their feelings, and possibly that could be a really excellent way of doing it. And I think one thing that would happen in these groups would be they would have a greater sense of intimacy. When I was working with my classes and having people share ideas with each other in pairs, it was really interesting to see how sharing their feelings increased their sense of connection and intimacy. And so the sharing of feelings in a group therapy setting among patients, of course, increases the feeling of closeness, feelings of intimacy, and it also make them feel positive about each other. Gee, I helped someone solve their problems, or I maybe have the ability to solve my own problems. So there's some potential, but of course it takes a bit of research to do that. The other issue is that there's some research, quite a bit of research, that suggests that everyday creativity can be beneficial for well-being. Whole broad literature, the art, improvisation, dancing, writing, poetry, singing, songwriting, cooking, just about anything you can come up with can be beneficial for well-being, apparently, according to these studies, and just generating new projects. But what is the psychological basis for that? Well, people there use the term flourishing. These people that do the research on creativity, using creativity for enhancing their feelings, enhancing their mental health, they talk about two aspects of flourishing. One is eudaimonia, which is essentially good feelings of happiness, a flow of just feeling good about yourself. So being creative makes you feel good because you were doing a task you love and sharing it with people, you're feeling good about it. But also, it's called eudaimonia, which is you become changed yourself. Wow, I found something that's very meaningful to me. I feel very engaged. Now gives me a sense of purpose or competence. Or, so you have this feeling of control that, gee, I'm able to do this. So it's both a feeling positive feelings, as well as maybe becoming confident in yourself and become excited about this kind of activity. So both of these can result from creative efforts in groups. So these are both called, flourishing or well-being, different kinds of well-being of feelings and well-being of feeling good about yourself. There have been a number of studies that have done that, but typically the quality is not what you'd like, but a couple, for example, that are quite good. One was done a diary study where people shared for 13 days on their creative activities and their emotional state. So they said, I'm working on these interesting things, I'm playing these things, I'm doing that, and plus I feel this way. And they discovered when people working in creative activities have reported that on their diary, their creativity in one day predicted their feeling more energetic, enthusiastic, and exciting the next day. So being creative and having creative time on one day predicts good feelings of enthusiasm, excitement on the next day. This is kind of the eudaimonia. Another one was a really major study by a medical doctor that had people for 9 months, older people working on creative activities, but with professionals in arts, music, and cultural domains. So for 2 years, it's quite a long process. And they found in their preliminary results that indeed people had gains in health promotion and disease prevention. But the trouble is there was no follow-up, and they never published any more detail about this particular study. And it turns out other research has shown that indeed when you do creative activities, there's evidence in the brain that you are actually becoming changed. So people who are in creative activities show some connectivity of their different parts of their brains. So it suggests that something is really happening in addition to their feelings, in addition to how they feel about themselves. But the limitations of that research, most of the research are case studies. They have small sample sizes. Very few studies on, do they continue that? Do they stay creative? Most involve only self-reports. There are very few that involve behavioral or neural measures. And there are no comparisons of different types of creativity. So there's a limitation to this research. And one thing that I haven't seen is that people really take choice. That is, according to research and creativity, it's best if you choose your creative activity because you feel motivated, intrinsically motivated about it. And in those studies, it turns out you were asked to do these things, but you weren't allowed to choose what you wanted to do. And of course, the question I have, given that I worked in collaborative creativity so many years, what about collaborative creativity? Can that be good for mental health and well-being? Well, why not? You develop social skills, working together. You get a lot of positive feedback about your ideas. You may have shared success and group cohesion. You may feel more effective or efficacy about yourself, and also have the same benefits of individual creativity. That is no reason why you shouldn't feel the positive feelings and the other kinds of feelings about, hey, I'm enjoying this. I feel really engaged in this. So collaborative creativity could be maybe one of the best things for enhancing well-being. And there are a few studies that have done that actually. Not many, but there's a few. One, for example, did songwritings with soldiers had PTSD and found out they worked together with people and they wrote songs about their military experience. And they also had writing workshops, meditation, yoga sessions. And they found in that study that people who did these kinds of activities felt more hope, optimism. They increased their creative pursuits, and they also had more connection to each other. So there's some positive effects. Of course, as you notice there, they also had meditation, yoga sessions. So who knows for sure whether it's creativity or the other things. At least that study looked at that issue. Another one looked at creativity in older people. Had the same kind of thing of working a whole series of collaborative musical compositions, writing music, writing music, working with people. And they found that this enhanced their good feelings as well as their self-esteem, and increased their social interaction as well. So these activities, like collaborative music activities or other kinds of creative activities, may be beneficial. Another one also worked on people who did played on drums and rehearsals, and they also suggest a lot of benefits of those activities. So I've only found 3 that did that, but there should be no reason why it shouldn't be generally true that working collaborative creativity with people shouldn't have these positive effects. Of course, these studies are more difficult to do than the kind of studies that are typically done on individual creativity. Now, the trouble with these few studies are they're essentially case studies with very limited samples, no control groups, except for the one study had a control group, the people who did not had different kinds of activities. Yet, I think the literature of creativity and well-being is quite promising, suggesting that might be a very good area of future research with people as another adjunct to helping people become feeling good about themselves and having a sense of well-being. And so possibly it could be done in mental health practice, right? People could give people choice of things to do. They could spend certain times in these activities, but we need to know what activities are best. Is it best to do a range of activities or just some? And is there some added benefit of collaborative creativity? And do these really improve mental health? And of course, the critical thing is to compare that with other kinds of activities. Are creativity activities more beneficial than activities with other cognitive challenges? Playing chess or playing bridge, right? Compare these activities. So is it just creativity, or is it working together with people that is the most beneficial? So the take-home message is quite simple. Creative activities appear to have a lot of potential for enhancing well-being. It's an exciting area for future research because the research has been limited to a lot of case studies, and we need to do additional studies to really find exactly what's going on and compare different kinds of procedures, different kinds of ways of doing it. Creative activities may be useful in addition to the therapy process. So if you're doing therapy work, maybe add the creative process to it. And it's also has interesting potential of applying this research to group creativity and group therapy, using the group creativity process in group therapy as well. In some, like to note that there's a recent book that on this issue called Expressive Instinct, How Imagination and Creative Works Helps Us to Survive and Thrive. This is done by actually someone who grew up in India, is now a professor in the United States, and very interesting book, very great detail. Writing about the potential, although she says at the end, just like I do, that there certainly needs to be more good research on this particular topic. So in any case, I think there's great potential for using creativity as just for general well-being, but also for therapy process. And I think this is something that needs to be looked at more closely. I think the title, I wish I'd use the title of Creative Works Helps Us Survive and Thrive, because really we need the skills to do effective creativity and collaborative creativity in the world today. There's so much conflict, so much confusion going on, and we need people to talk to each other, not just people in therapy groups, but talk to each other who have different perspectives, different backgrounds to solve problems. And the world needs people to work together more effectively in collaboration. We need collective wisdom, which is what I'm working on at the present time. To make wisdom would be making good decisions as well as generating good ideas. We're presently using artificial intelligence to assist people making good decisions. I think people can do that. I'm worried more about the leaders of the world. If they could come together and actually come together and make good decisions, because otherwise, just because we do it, the leaders have more control. So I think there's great potential for using collaborative innovation techniques, but people have to be willing to work and do it and work with each other in an effective manner. So anyway, it's a short version of my talk. I'm sorry about it being a little bit late, and certainly open any questions or ideas that you might have in relation to this.
Yeah. So do we have any questions, sir? Okay, so right now we don't have any questions, but anyway, I'm thankful. Yeah. Anybody from the panel member want to ask any question to Dr. Paul? Sir, please unmute yourself.
A great deliberation, it is very clear. Thank you very much, Professor Paulus.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So Dr. Paul is a Dean and Distribution University Professor for the last 2 decades. Dr. Paulus is working on group creativity and group decision making. And as to his imprints are concerned, he has got more than 14 books written. So thank you very much, sir, for your words of wisdom and deliberation. It will definitely going to help and set the right momentum for the coming conference. Thank you, all of you. So, dear participants, you can join with the coming plenary session. My colleague, Dr. Norbert Suleiman, will take care. Till then, allow me to take rest. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you. Sorry about the mix-up. I thought, when you said December 1st, I thought it was the next day, but the timing was a problem. So, but eventually got on there.
I will come problem.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Paul.
Thank you, sir.
You all can join plenary from the new another link which has been given to you. Shared.
I request all participants to join the plenary session 1 from the other link that has been provided.